Welcome to the Odds Checker Champions Day special. I am joined by two expert guests as we run through the card to try and find the value at Ascot on Saturday. To my right is Odds Checker's tipster. Whenever you come here, you're always in very good form, Andy, as well. And Andy's in great form at the moment. Andy Holding to my right, and to my left, returning to the Odds Checker podcast, is Mike Spence, professional punter. All three of us obviously looking forward to going on Saturday. None of us are going to be there on Saturday. Mike, tell us where you're going to be instead of Ascot.
Yeah, it's my birthday on Saturday, actually, so I've accepted an invite to Chelsea United, so I'm off there on Saturday.
Fair enough.
Chelsea win. And
a couple of birthday winners. I'm going to the less glamorous Bristol Rovers against Oxford United. Andy, will you be on the sofa watching from home?
Yeah, nothing glamorous for me. Just I'll be there just tuning in from TV at home and enjoying the racing and keeping my finger on the pulse, because I think you need to be switched on top of things quite quickly at Ascot on Saturday, because track position and draw is going to be key, along with the ground as well. So first couple of races are going to really set out the dynamics for the rest of the day.
Well, fair to say you're going to have a much better viewpoint from your sofa than Mike or I will have in football stadiums. We'll get straight into it. So running through the card from the first race to the last, and we're going to open up with the Long Distance Cup. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon, Thursday lunchtime. The decks are out and the markets have reformed. So this is fresh off the press, basically. Stradivarius is the even money favourite. Flag of Honour 9-4. Thomas Hobson 10-1. Sir Eric 14-1. Mount Moriah 20-1. Desert Skyline 40-1. And 50-1 Cypress Creek. 7 runners, frustratingly, in this one. We asked listeners to send in some questions. The first one is the obvious one to go for here. Bertie Butler asks, is Stradivarius one of the great lays? For an odds, previously odds on, now even money favourite. I haven't heard many kind words about John Gosden's Stradivarius, especially for the horse that's had a stellar campaign this year, winning that £1 million bonus as well. So Andy, coming to you first, you can answer Bertie's question. Is Stradivarius a lay for you or something of a banker?
I'm not a layer by trade, as it were, but if I was going to stand it, if I was a bookmaker on Saturday, I think he's one of the ones that you'd puff your chest out and be quite happy to take on around the even money or shade of odds on at time of writing, based on his soft ground form or lack of it. He did run well in the race last year, certainly bear that in mind. He finished a creditable third behind Order of St George, but the bare facts of it, he went into the racing in really good order, similar to this year. I don't think he's done anything this year that he didn't do last year. You know, he won at Goodwood and he ran well in the Ledger. Arguably, that was the best form going into the race, and yet he could only, like I say, finish third behind Order of St George. He just seems to struggle on that heavy ground. It is going to be a slog, there's no doubt about it. It's currently heavy, soft in places. The round track will ride a lot slower, and it's not really his kind of thing. He's a floater, he's a quickener, and he does gallop. The one thing he has got going for him, which might temper enthusiasm for the lays, is he does battle very hard. He's been in one or two gritty fights this season. He's come out on top, so he's got that in his makeup. But I do think this is going to be a proper test, and he's just not the kind of horse I want to back. Unfortunately, there is only 7 runners.
Huge blow, that.
It is, really, if you haven't had a bet already. I did take a bit of a punt on one that I'll talk about in a minute, that I thought was overpriced based on his ratings rather than his actual profile, because I think his profile is very much going in the right direction. That's Sir Eric. Now, Aidan O'Brien's I think he's got 3 in the races. He's certainly got 2. And his main one is going to be Flag of Honour. And I presume Ryan Moore, I don't know if it was Ryan Moore riding at the meeting.
You'd have to assume so, yeah.
I'd imagine that Ryan will ride Flag of Honour because he's second favourite, and most jockeys look at the bet and think, well, I'm going to ride a 2-to-1 shot rather than ride a 12-14 to 1 shot. But make no mistake, this Sir Eric is a real improver. And he ties in with quite a few of the Irish horses that I keep an eye on. The one in particular called Twilight Payment, who's the benchmark for all 1.5/2 mile form in Ireland. I mean, he trained by Jim Balls, he finished second, third, all the time in those staying races, Group 1s, Group 2s. I think he was 3rd or 4th in the Irish St Ledger behind Flag of Honour. But Sir Eric beat him really comfortably the other day. And the key to Sir Eric, for those that are not familiar with him, he's a real round action. He hits the ground very hard, and he absolutely devours soft ground. When he won at Limerick the other day, the ground was bottomless. And he left a good feel for dinner. I clocked him from the 3 furlong pole that day, and he was the quickest horse on the card. It's better than the 7 furlong mile handicappers, some good horses as well. I think he'll stay as well. I think the further he goes, the better he'll be. I think he's a player. He's around about 12, 14 to 1 at the moment. And the other one I'd throw into the mix as well is Mount Moriah, who ran poorly in the Gold Cup, but the ground was firm. He absolutely hates firm ground, so you can scratch that off. He hasn't run since, but he was a creditable fourth in this race last year. And going back and watching the video, I think Harry Bentley rode him on that occasion. He had a rush of blood to the head. He took it up about 4 or 5 out. It's a long way home in Ascot, and he really did press on. He's still at the winner with a furlong to go, and he only just caved in late on. So he ties in with Stradivarius and Order St George. He was only just beaten by Stradivarius, and yet, you know, he's available back at what, 14, 16 to 1?
20 to 1 with Betway, Mount Moriah, Sir Eric 14 to 1. The annoying thing is, Andy, we've worked so hard to get you in just after decks, and you've given 2 each way tips. It would have been much better about 3 hours ago.
It's a killer, really, yeah. If you'd have done this early on the week at Tuesday, which we kind of like had a little bit of a thought about doing, these two would have been the bets. I still think that the way I'd probably play this race is I'd probably back them both to win. I won't go each way, but I'd also back both of these two without the favourite. There's no without the favourite markets yet, but come Saturday, they'll guarantee to obviously make Flag of Honour a very, very skinny price second favourite. I would have my life on either one of the other two I've mentioned, Sir Eric and Mount Moriah beating Thomas Hobson. I'd be pretty sure that Flag of Honour won't have his conditions. He'll make the run in. I think it's a big task for a horse who likes fast ground to make all the run in Ascot on 2 miles. I think he'll be a sitting duck later on. So I think this is a really good bet in it. The other two don't count. Cypress Creek and Desert Skyline. Desert Skyline was tailed off in this race last year. Yeah. He's an absolute million. So really, you're looking at 2 horses if Stradivarius doesn't turn up.
Well, let's see what Mike thinks of this. Do you agree, Mike? Are you looking at the bigger prices of the market, or do one of those shorter two take your fancy?
I think, to be fair, I don't disagree with anything there. There's 2 things really with Stradivarius. I mean, there's 2 reasons to lay, and one is the ground, as you've pointed out. You know, the only twice has been beaten over 14 furlongs or further, and both performances have been on soft ground. You know, he's simply not as good, in my opinion, on softer ground. But that's not to say that he can't win.
Not better than these, possibly.
Exactly, as you said, he was 3rd in the race last year. He still managed to beat Mount Moriah last year. I think he's very skinny. I don't want to lay him on the basis of I don't think he's going to win, but I don't think he should be an even money poke that he is at the moment. I think he should be more about a 5 to 4, 6 to 4 shot. I think that would be fair. Personally, I don't like Flag of Honour a huge amount. I mean, you mentioned Twilight Payment. I mean, this horse beaten Twilight Payment like 3 or 4 times all season, and I personally thought he won a very weak Irish Ledger last time. He beat Latrobe, who, you know, he's a very good horse. He won the Irish Derby, but since then, he was completely beaten in the Jubbmont. And Weekender, I don't think he's the toughest. A few of these Frankels, just a few question marks about him. He was 2nd in the but when push comes to shove with Weekender, I'm not sure he really wants it. Yeah. And as such, I think he could have been flattered by beating Latrobe and Weekender in a Twilight Payment again back and forth. I'm just not sure what level he's achieved. So while I say Stradivarius delay, there's not a huge amount to take on with him.
If you're looking at Sir Eric and Mount Moriah, the 2 horses that Andy have pulled out, would they be where you're looking, or do you think there's...
Yeah, I think Mount Moriah should be half the price he is. If you just watched that race last year, with natural improvement, he's not had much racing. I get the impression that this has been the target since the Gold Cup. It was far too... he won very well on his first start. I thought he was a bit disappointing at Sandown, and the Gold Cup, just ignore that. I think it's pretty clear that they've been waiting all year for softer ground, and he'll be cherry ripe for this. And the other thing to oppose Stradivarius is this is kind of an afterthought. All season's been about this £1 million Weatherby's bonus. He's won it, and he's put in some brilliant performances. I do think he's been better this year than last year, but and he is the best horse. Like, all of his form, even his form in the race when he was beaten last year, is still better than anything that any of these have achieved so far in their careers. So you're sort of playing, if you're laying him, you're not really laying his ability and him not winning it. You're sort of laying I know obviously betting is about their chance of winning, but to really want to lay him at that price is there's not a huge amount of margin. I'm not saying it should be a 3 to 1 poke here. But yeah, Mount Moriah would be, I like Sir Eric, but I'd be willing to take a fairly good chance on Mount Moriah at any double-figure price. I think he should be closer to 7. So on the basis that he will be cherry ripe for this race, and if he just has any natural improvement from last year, unless he's completely lost the plot, I think he's going to be bang there.
So Mount Moriah, the pick for both of the guests here, with Andy also looking at Sir Eric and Mike saying that Mount Moriah should be a single-figure price, 20-1 if you're quick with Betway. On to the second race of the day now, which is the Champions Sprint. We have the Tin Man is 3-1 favourite, Labrisa Breeze 5-1, Harry Angel 13-2, Brando 8-1, Tassley 10-1, Lamato 16-1, 20-1 Bar. I'm sure we'll be talking about maybe a couple of the horses that are bigger than 20s. Andy, I mean, it's obviously a pretty tough one to pick here in the sprint, but are you looking at some of the principles in the market, or are you looking at a couple of bigger prices?
Yeah, sort of Countdown tradition, I'd probably take one from the top and one from the bottom. I think a lot of these on their day can win this race. It's not a race I think you can be dogmatic about and say, oh yeah, that's got a massive edge. The ground's a great leveller here, and I think one or two horses definitely come back into the equation after disappointing seasons. So I don't think you can look at the form literally and say, right, A beats B beats C. I think track position, as I mentioned early on in the piece, where the pace is likely to be. And of course, don't forget that they narrow the track as well here at Ascot. So the draw normally where they spread and there's a big wide expanse and they go down the middle. I think there could be a bit of a bias either way, depending on how the jocks play it. So you've got to factor that in as well when you're looking at this race beforehand. I think the Tin Man's the right favourite because now he's proven that he handles really testing conditions, like when he won at Haydock. That definitely opens up more options for him. Before, I'd always pigeonholed him as a decent ground horse, a good turn of foot, horse that travels well. But he slugged it out at Haydock, and that's probably because of his age now and he's getting a bit more hardier and durable. So like I say, I think he's the right favourite. He's got loads of Ascot form as well. I mean, the golden rule about punting at Ascot is to disregard anything that hasn't run here before, because you will time and time again get your fingers burnt. At least the Tin Man has got plenty of C&D form. He ran well in this race last year, albeit it wasn't quite good enough. So, like I said, I think he's the right favourite. Labrisa Breeze is the one that interests me. He's been a bit disappointing this year, despite him being very well backed on quite a few occasions. He was well punted last time at Newbury. He didn't turn up, and that's slightly disconcerting because normally Labrisa Breeze is fairly reliable, even though we know that he wants soft or heavy ground to be at his absolute best, like he was in this race last year. He was brilliant last year. And I think if he runs to that level, then for me, he's the one to beat Labrisa Breeze, because we know that a big field, Ascot, straight track, soft ground, he cruises through the field and he's got a good turn of foot at the end. Or basically, he outstays everything at the end because he is ostensibly a 7 furlong horse that gets a strongly run 6 in heavy ground really well. He's one good run this season, which I think determines that he still remains in reasonably good nick, is when he finished 4th in the Prix Maurice de Guy, so 6.5. I watched the tape back on that the other day just to kind of reacquaint myself with the run, and I think had Robert Winston not switched from his high draw, there was 3 that went on the far side. James Garfield, who ended up finishing 2nd, went far side. And I think Polydream tracked him through and they fought out the finish. Labrisa Breeze came towards the near side, and I think that manoeuvre ended up costing the race, because by halfway, the near side must have been about 6 or 7 lengths behind. So the likes of Tin Man and Labrisa Breeze's performance needed to be upgraded. Particularly Labrisa Breeze, he was last halfway and he finished 4th. So that was on good ground. So if you factored that run, going back to Ascot on soft ground, there's no way you could rule out Labrisa Breeze. And bookmakers have had him on side all the way through. He's only 4, 9-2, 5-1. He's not like the sort of 7 or 8, 10-1 chance. He should be based on what he's done this season. So I'd definitely give Labrisa Breeze a massive chance.
Ascot form of Labrisa Breeze, you mentioned, so important. 7 runs, 3 wins in a second as well.
There you go.
So
and I put him up in this race last year, so I've got good
You've
reason
got form
to
as
be
well.
fond of him and to kind of stay loyal and when others have probably dismissed him. Harry Angel has now got just too many bad runs on the board, A, this season, B, at Ascot, to be a viable proposition at his price. I mean, he's the same price as Labrisa Breeze, for crying out loud. I mean, the excuse manual's wearing thin with this fella. He was lights out the other day at Haydock, and then he just completely faded. yes, he did run well in this race last year, and he does now at least handle soft ground, but I couldn't have him in my mind at the moment. You know, the Cox team have been a bit in and out this season. He's been in and out. Brando, I think, will just get too far behind. He's drawn 14 as well. I think that could be a bogey draw if they go down the middle, or there's a bit of a funky track there on Saturday.
But before we go into double figure prices, let's see what Mike thinks of those 4 principles as well. Mike, are any of those? I mean, are you agreeing with Andy that Labrisa Breeze seems the one, and Tin Man the worthy favourite? Or
I'm not. He's probably the worthy favourite. You know, he's the worthy favourite because he won the Sprint Cup. But I'm probably in. I mean, I'd be very happy to lay the Tin Man just at 3-1. I just think it's an open race, and he probably, you know, if I was a bookmaker and someone came asking, I'd just lay him all day at 3-1. He's probably that's probably a fair price, if not, in my opinion, a bit shorter. Labrisa Breeze is, I mean, it's like the same race. Andy's got the same sheet as me. He won the race last year, and as Andy says, they've cut this course down the middle to look after the jumps track, and it's also to preserve this course just in case it does get too heavy. And last year they did stick to what will be the far side rail, so the lower draws are likely to be favoured here. I like Labrisa Breeze. I don't think he's had his ground all year. I'm happy to near enough put a line through everything. But as Andy said, his run in the Maurice de Guiche was very, very good. It's really good form. In my opinion, it's as good as the Tin Man's win was last year. I think while Harry Angel bombed out last time, it was bottomless there. He was so far ahead of where he should be, so far ahead, 3 out of where he really should have been to be racing optimally, that I just think he just fell in, really. I think a lot of the horses in the Sprint Cup did. That's not a positive for Harry Angel because, you know, he seems to be going the wrong way mentally. I undoubtedly think he's the best of these by about £12, but the chances of him reproducing that run and that ability, which he hasn't shown since summer of 2017, are quite low. So you have to really take Harry on. He's drawn 13 of 14. He's going to be this side. The only way I really think Harry Angel could win is if they were to drop him in and they were to get cover and come late, and that's not really his style. If I just don't think he'll get home on that ground over 6, especially the way he is mentally at the moment. But I do think he's the best horse, and if they were to drop him in and try and ride him completely differently for one last go, then I think he could be the one to. It wouldn't surprise me if he came and won by 2 lengths or something. I just think they're using his energy in the wrong way at the moment, and sometimes that happens. They tried to make the running a lot when he was a 3-year-old, and it might still be in his mind. But yeah, for me, I think Labrisa Breeze is still a fair price. He showed completely in France. He still has the ability to win this race. He's drawn 5 right in the middle. They're going to go fast. I think everything's in place for a good run, and I think he should be favourite, and I think he might well go off favourite on Saturday.
Well, we know that when he's fancied, his owner does like a bet as well, so it wouldn't be surprising to see him being well backed as ever on Saturday. Andy, you're looking at the laptop like there is a bigger price fancy that you want to flag up here before we move on.
Yeah, there is another one I'd definitely throw into the mix at the prices. I think the pace is all over the track here. We have got front runners both sides, Harry Angel 13 and Don Juan from potentially, he's on the far side, and that could drag in the likes of Labrisa Breeze, of course, who's drawn out there as well. But the other one I quite like at price is 20-1 is Protection. Horse that managed to win a 4-runner race here last time out, but that wouldn't have necessarily suited him because he is ostensibly he comes from a background of big field handicaps. But he managed to beat Dream of Dreams quite comfortably. And the market very much is in the favour of Dream of Dreams the other day, and he basically chewed him up and spat him out quite comfortably. He's got great form as well at Ascot on the straight track. I thought he should have been Blue Point here this time last year, but Blue Point just got first run on him. But he's never been out of frame here at Ascot on the straight track over 6 furlongs. The faster they go, the better. He loves soft ground. He comes here fresh. The Charlton horses are running okay. I thought he was a big price. I'd sooner back him than I would Lamato. I mean, Lamato, according to Henry Candy at Newmarket today, was never going to run. He was never going to run on decent ground or with a bit of cut in the ground. No, it's poured down around, and he's a definite runner. Yeah. I think he'll get sunk in the mud. And I think that's one of the reasons why Harry Angel doesn't win here, or he hasn't won here. He's run well here, but his run style is very much like a flat track horse. Haydock, that's why he's so good there. It's hard to make the ground on a flat track, but Haydock, Frontrunners have an appalling record over this straight track. They always hit the wall, and it's hard for a horse like him to harness that natural exuberance and to try and see it out over 6. He can't get away from horses here, and it's a slogger's track on soft ground. That's why the horses from a 7 furlong background often do well, like Labrisa Breeze and Protection. So those are the two I'm looking at under the conditions on Saturday. I presume it's still going to ride heavy or soft, because with the atmosphere being quite dank and dense at the moment, I can't see it drying out. So those are my two against the field.
Mike, anything for you before we move on?
Not the bigger prices. I mean, Labrisa Breeze, Harry Angel and the Tin Man take up about, I think it's about 55% of the market, and I'd rather have those three taking up a bigger share of the market than the outside. My style of betting is sort of trying to back the best horse, not really trying to back a horse that if it falls apart, they might win. And in my opinion, the race really has to fall apart for any of the other three to win.
There you have it. So Labrisa Breeze is 5-1 pick for these two of the principals, and also Andy looking at projection as well. On to the Phillies and Mares now, and we were asked a question by Tristan Wotton. So we will start with comparing the top two. Just run through the prices quickly. Lati Dar is 6-4 favourite. That's standout price for black type. Kite Surf 5-1. Coronet 11-2. Hydrangea 9-1. Magical 10-1. Pilaster 12-1. 20-1 Bar. Tristan asks, how do you rate Kite Surf's Vermeer win versus the performances of Lati Dar? And I'm going to go to Mike first this time. So Mike, Lati Dar versus Kite Surf.
Well, Lati Dar, I thought wasn't at her best at Doncaster. I thought that run was £7 lower than Newmarket, which in my opinion is her best performance this year, despite the visual impression of York. But that's not to say that York couldn't have been better. You know, she won by as far as she could have done. She wasn't going to go and win by 20 lengths. But personally, I thought Newmarket was better. I think on what they've done so far, her Vermeer win wasn't quite as good as what Lati Dar's done so far. But I do think Kite Surf was a lot better than the bare result in the Vermeer. She didn't travel great. I thought, personally, I think she'll be better on softer ground, where it's a bit more of a slog. I do think, not necessarily a slog that sort of doesn't really do her justice. She's a very good horse, but I just think a real solid pace on slightly softer ground on a real galloping track like Ascot will really suit her. I think she's also rapidly improving. I'm not really sure Lati Dar is still improving. You know, on my figures, she hasn't improved. If anything, she's slightly gone backwards since the start of the year. I mean, I think she's got a little bit to find, but I wouldn't want to be, I'd want to be keeping Kite Surf on the side. I think she could, while she hasn't achieved as much, could easily improve to the same level as Lati Dar. So
you almost say that Lati Dar's performances have been better, but that isn't necessarily reflected in the price discrepancy at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's true. Lati Dar's got a real sort of sexy profile, as you would call it. You know, she hasn't had much racing. Whereas Kite Surf's she's got a real French profile. She's really been looked after, and she's improved with age. Whereas I kind of get the impression Lati Dar was the finished article in the spring. Whether she'd have won it, I think she'd have won the Oaks by miles. But I think that was a bad Oaks. But I don't necessarily think she's really improved. I thought she ran very well in the Ledger, and John Gosden said the other day that he's never had a horse come out the Ledger better than her. It looked to me like she had a bad race, and I didn't think she had a spark in the Ledger. She didn't travel as well as she normally does, especially going up in trip. I expected her to, she sort of ran a bit upside down to me. She is a worthy favourite, I think. She's a little bit skinny. I mean, if you could back Kite Surf each way at 5-1 or 4-1, 9-2, I'd be all over that. I think she's a league ahead of a lot of the others in here, and she, if anything's, definitely going to give her running. I'd say Kite Surf will. I did think Lati Dar had a hard race last time.
Andy, do you agree with all that, or are you closer to Team Gosden?
Certainly respect Lati Dar. She's a filly that's definitely going the right way. Been well campaigned throughout the season, but again, I've got a golden rule at Ascot. I'll bore you to tears with this, but you cannot possibly back horses here at a short price that have never run on the track. You will do your absolute brains time and time and time again. It's just a terrible bet, regardless of whether she wins or not. you keep turning up back in 5 to 4 shots. Has never run at Ascot, and you will literally you will do your conquer. So I'm prepared to let her win. There's always great value in races like this with horses that have run at the track well before, and the market's totally skewed. Looking at that race that Lartidar won, it was actually on the same day, so it gives me some good sectional time comparisons with Sear Class, and I know the Sear Class is the better horse of the two. Looking at where they ran from 5 out to the line, there's about a second difference. It's no surprise that Sear Class ran well in the Arc de Triomphe. I mean, what a run that was, by the way. I mean, it was the best horse in the Arc by half an hour. Yeah. So based on Lartidar's performance on the Naismar, and looking at Coronet, who finished second to Sear Class, you've got a really good each-way bet here with Coronet, because Coronet turns up absolutely every single time it runs. It loves soft ground. It was third in the race last year. And on my sectional comparisons, it's a better horse than Lartidar, just based on that York run. So what this horse is doing at 11-2, I mean, it's like a free bet, isn't it? It's very much an underrated horse because it's not a sexy profile of the others, but it's got, like I say, it's got that golden Ascot form, which you should seriously be looking at. Unfortunately, and this is the only slight niggle, she did get beaten this race last year, and I think the pivotal horse for this race is Hydrangea. Now, her 2 runs, her first run this season was fine, but her next 2 runs were deplorable. I mean, she was 7-4 favourite to win the straight track mile. They were umming and ahhing what race to run her in, whether they were going to run over a mile and a quarter. To drop her back up to a mile on good ground was a mistake. And then she ran no sort of race again on firm ground, but she's very much an autumn filly. I've looked at her overall stats, and she comes good at this time of year on soft or heavy ground. And if she turns up with her A game like she did in this race last year, she nearly wins this. I mean, she left a good feel for dead with her turn of foot. And going into that race, they were thinking, will she get a mile and a half? Well, she got it standing on her head on soft ground. So this is, I think, what she wants. She is a slogger in the mud. She's got a condition. So despite, I still rate Lartidar. And I think the French horse is okay, but again, she's got no Ascot form, she's got no soft ground form. So the front 2 in the market here really got glass tunes for me. And you can back Coronet freely at each way 11-2, and Hydrangea, what, 9-1?
9-1 with Labrooks and Coral, yeah. I mean, are there no concerns to you about Hydrangea since that win, the last kind of 4 or 5 runs have been so poor?
There has to be, but there are plausible excuses. Good to firm over a straight mile at Ascot. Not really her bag. Like I say, you look at Labrise, it's a similar situation to Labrise. You've almost got to disregard runs under conditions that don't suit, and if you're prepared to sort of give them the benefit of the doubt, which I am, then you've certainly got great value on a horse that, if it's anywhere near its level that it showed last year, Hydrangea shouldn't be a 9-1 shot, and be interested to see how the jockey bookings go.
I was about to say, I mean, with Hydrangea as well, it's easy to forget that despite the bare form looking fairly poor, finished just 6 lengths behind Roaring Lion 2 starts ago as well.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not like it's completely gone at the game. Yeah. The other one to mention is Pilastra as well. I don't think she's quite good enough based on a narrow margin victory over Made Up. Made Up was a bit disappointing in the Ledger. So if you're doing collateral form, there's no way it can beat Lartidar. But that horse got a shocking ride on Town Moor. I mean, for a strong stayer who needed every yard to get up at Goodwood, Andrea Zina dropped it out last in a 6-runner race at Doncaster and rode it for a turn of foot. It was unbelievably crazy. I'd imagine they'll make a lot more use of Pilastra. She's got some good time figures when they've gone hard, and I think she'll run okay. But again, she's got no soft ground or Ascot form, which slightly tempers my enthusiasm.
The one horse we haven't mentioned is Magical, who opened up at 12 and 10-1 about an hour or so ago. That is all gone. A sea of blue on the odds checker grids, 7-1 and 8-1 now. Maybe a bit of 10s if you're quick, but I'm sure that would have gone by the time this goes out. Could that be? You alluded to it there. Could it be the jockey booking where it could be Ryan riding like Magical over Hydrangea?
Like a Ryan Moore job, yeah.
Potentially, yeah. I'm not sure. I think Hydrangea's a good point. I think she's not far off the right price at the moment, unless you knew something. You're taking a real punt. She's going to suddenly find that form again against some very good fillies. Maybe a tiny bit shorter, but I quite like Pilastra, as you said. You'll be pleased to know I don't think Andrea's on this time. I think David Egan's got the right.
I hope Andrea isn't listening as well.
I think David rode the horse at
He rode it at Goodwood and won, and then Andrea rode it at Doncaster. She just didn't really pick up though, did she? I know they went slow, but I mean, I thought they got racing early and she didn't really pick up. I like her a lot, and I think the reason why she didn't run that well at Doncaster was because the ground wasn't soft enough. I know going into Goodwood they were terrified of the ground and they nearly didn't run her. I know Roger Varian, and I was desperately trying to get him to convince the owner to run this and to supplement this and enter it for the St Ledger. I mean, it wouldn't have gone well based on her Doncaster run anyway. But I still think this filly, from what I've heard, really wants soft ground, and the softer the better. And I know this race has been the plan for quite a long time now. The reasoning for the St Ledger was they were going to sort of take it steady and then finish in the Group 1 at Ascot. So this race has been the plan for quite a long time, and everything along the way has been a stepping stone. I think she's a really stiff stayer, and Doncaster, as you said, was a speed test. I don't think it suited her.
No, not at all.
And in this type of race, as we have said in a few races as well, they get racing early at Ascot, and it can be a long, long way home. And it might really suit her, mile 4 on, it's a real test. I don't think she's slow either. Her Kempton runs show that she isn't slow. And I think she's going to see it out very well. If she's in a fair position turning for home, I just think personally think more of, I thought Doncaster was a bit of a blip. I thought she's better than that. I'd be happy to ignore Doncaster rather than the pace, because she didn't really quicken from 3 to 2 and 2 to 1. It was sort of only the final furlong I thought she got rolling. But I think she's I think this is very competitive. For me, Coronet, from my opinion, I think Coronet can only win if it's a really below par race. I think it's her 10th attempt at trying to win a Group 1. She hasn't won one yet. I just don't think she's quite there. I think she's probably a Group 2 filly. She's got good form in Group 2s. But I think if Kitesurf and Larty Dar were to run their races, I think they're the two. I know they're not Ascot horses, and you could...
Well, it's good that you guys are finally disagreeing, because it was all going a bit well in the first couple of races, so it's good. But then, it sounds like you're both. Certainly Andy's very happy to watch Larty Dar win at the prices, and there's a few each way picks there, whether it's Kitesurf. You're both agreeing that Pilaster is certainly one to look out for at 12 to 1 across the board there as well, and you wouldn't be getting that price probably if it wasn't for that Doncaster run. So
true,
if you can draw a line through that, and then Coronet as well for Andy 11 to 2, and Kitesurf at 5 to 1. That's with Betfred, Sky Bet and Ladbrokes. Delighted that we're starting to talk about a short price favourite and some each way bets as well. It's about time. On to the QE2 now. And Roaring Lion is the 5 to 2 favourite. If John Gosden's listening to this podcast, he'll be crossing his fingers that finally you're going to give one of his horses a fighting chance here. Recoletos is 6 to 1. Lord Glitters 7 to 1. Lauren 7 to 1. Adayeb 8 to 1. Beat the Bank 16 to 1. Happily 16 to 1. Lightning Spear 16 to 1. 18 to 1. Century Dream, and then 66 to 1. Bar. Andy, what do you reckon here?
Yeah, look, I'm one of the fully paid up members of the Roaring Lion fan club. He's I think I've put him up at least 2 or 3 times this season when he's been underestimated in the market, when he shouldn't have been, particularly at York. I thought he was a daft price that day. Got the job done really determiningly at Leopardstown last time out. Didn't get into a particularly good track position, but still showed a really good turn of foot, and that is the key to Roaring Lion. Good turn of foot. But this is a totally different ball game to what he's faced all year. I wrote a piece on this race. I think it was maybe Sunday or Monday, and I put up Lord Glitters based on track form on soft ground, and I kind of dismissed Roaring Lion and Lawrence. I didn't really care whether they run or not. It's immaterial to me whether they run. All it's done now is made me even more confident to back Lord Glitters again, because I think this market has gone completely mad. 5 to 2 for Roaring Lion on a straight track it's never run on. On ground it's not proven on. It's the name Roaring Lion. You're backing the horse Roaring Lion. You're not backing his ability. We don't know. You just do not know what Roaring Lion's going to do. So how can you back him at 5 to 2 when you just don't know what he's capable of on a track he's never run over before? The same technically applies to Recoletos, who did at least run in the Queen Anne, and of course has won last time out, and at least has got soft ground form. But the bare bones are that it's got thrashed at Ascot the only time it's run on the straight track. So the front two in the market, including Lawrence as well, I haven't mentioned her. I mean, she's had an unbelievable season, and you've got to tip your hat to Connections and the way she's gone about her business. What an amazing horse. Great heart, great fight. But all her wins have been on fast ground when she's dictated from the front. Now, could she make all over a stiff mile on soft ground? Like I say, I think this market is absolutely, like, completely skewed. And that's why I really fancy Lord Glitters. I mean, you can still see 7-1 now.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The good news was you put up the tip a couple of days ago, 2 points each way. It was at sevens. That sevens disappeared very quickly. But now, because Rory Lyon's still there, the others are still there, you've got the sevens back again. So 7-1 with Coral and Bet Stars.
Happy days. People are probably scrambling around trying to take 5 and 9 and 2 on Monday or Tuesday, but you can. And some firms might go 4 places, you know.
Well, you've got Sky Bet, Betfair, Sportsbook, Bet Victor, and Paddy Power, all 4 places with a 6-1.
I mean, surely Lord Glitters, even now, as I speak, has got to be a free bet at that price. Whether he wins or not, he's the bet of the race. Because you just keep backing horses like Lord Glitters, and the jack will come up every now and again when they win. And the chances are that he might win. But even if he doesn't, he'll finish in the first 4, because his Ascot form is unbelievable. His soft ground form, as I've pointed out, is something like 2-2, 1-1, 2-1. I mean, it's like you're testing the mic. He's got that many 2-1-1, 2-1-1s. He's hardly ever. He just hardly runs a bad race. Jamie Spence has been booked because obviously Danny Tudhope's got injured. So by hook or by crook, he's now got the best straight track jockey rider Ascot in the world on him. And he's going to get a lovely toe in on that far side rail as well, because I think he's drawn 2, and I think there are front runners on the far side. I'd be scared stiff of William Haggis' horse, Adayeb, who beat him fair and square on the day in the Lincoln. But Adayeb did have the benefit of running where the pace was that day, and Lord Glitters, I think, was high, and he had to come over and across, and it didn't probably pan out for him as well as he would have liked. But on a stiff track Ascot, Lord Glitters is just different grade, and I think it's 7-1. I know I'm obviously biased because I've already put him up, so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, really. But
so fair to say that Andy has made up his mind on this year's QE2. Mike, I'm going to come to you now. Please, for the sake of the podcast, for the sake of the video, don't say that you've got written down what Andy's just said. Can you take on Lord Glitters for us?
I think Lord Glitters is the right price. I did not a back or a lay. I just think he's the right price. I have him rated 114. It's a very good level. But I think he'd need a few to underperform here to win the race.
They will on next round.
Very possibly. My bet of the whole day is Recoletos. I think he's so bullish on him. You only have to watch the Champion Stakes last year. I mean, he's against Cracksman. Cracksman, that is an absolute best last year. I gave Cracksman 131 for winning the Champion Stakes. You know, just watch it back turning in. There's only one horse travelling in anywhere near as well as Cracksman, and he's probably travelling better than Cracksman. You know, he's sitting in midfield. He quickly goes past everything bar Cracksman into second, and he just doesn't get home. You know, it's 10 furlongs, soft ground last year. He just didn't get home. You know, I thought he showed so much ability. If he'd have been in the QE2 last year, he'd have won it. Happy to ignore Ascot this year. You know, it's his only bad run really this year. His form this year is very solid. Fast ground in the Queen Anne, drawn 1 out on the wing. I mean, I personally think everything just went against him. They gave him a little break. He came back and he finished second as well for Centauri. And he was a very, very good winner at the Moulin last time out. I mean, thing about the draw here as well, I think Roaring Lion's drawn 15, if that's right. I think I wrote that down. You know, he's going to be out on the wing. It's going to be a hard one. Recoletos might end up running 1 off the rail, where that rail's going to be. I think he's going to get a dream run into it. I didn't think there was a lot of pace, but I think there's enough pace. Lawrence is the only one I could really see going on here. She's been brilliantly campaigned, and she's very tough, but she's only run against fillies this year. And I just think this will be... I thought she had a very hard race at Newmarket. She really had to dig deep, and if the Lawrence team were able to get her fresh and cherry ripe for another big race so quickly, and she wins, then fair play. But at 13-2, she looks the right price to me. I think she'll be fine on ground, and I think she's going to run her race. But when I say I think she'll run her race, if they've managed to get her right again, I think she'll run her race. But I did think she had a hard race I think she's in stall 6, Recoletos in 3. I just think he's going to get a dream run through. I'm so bullish on him. I just think, in my opinion, he has to run below par to not win the QE2. And that's because Roaring Lion, I don't think they really want to run him. I think they're just trying to, it's Champions Day. They want to give him a good run. But, this is the softest ground he's ever run on. When he won the Royal Lodge, John Gosden said he likes top of the ground. American bred, he was very anti-soft ground. And, they've already switched from the champion. It shows you how worried they are about the ground. They don't think he's going to get home in the ground. So they're doing everything they can to give him the best chance of winning a race, which is over 8. I think he'll be fine over 8. I think he's a very quick horse. But as Andy says, this is a totally different test to what he's had. And being drawn 15 of 15 isn't easy in any case. I just think Recoletos has got a lot. I think he's going to save a good few pounds, maybe 2 lengths from getting a lovely toe through the race in behind the field. I think Lord Glitters will run well. I thought he had an each-way squeak, and I thought he'd run very well. But I would be very disappointed if Recoletos couldn't run to a mark a good few pounds higher than that. William Haggis' horse, I think we've not seen the best of him yet. He's the one I'd probably be worried about because he won the Lincoln brilliantly. He was very impressive at Sandown when he didn't really have to beat anything, but he did it as easily as he could. It was fast ground last time. You can just ignore that really. He's in hindsight, they'd have looked back, they'd have waited until the QE2, they'd have come back for it. But it is what it is. He hasn't had the hardest of campaigns, but he has been on the go a long time. I'm sure William Haggis will prime him. And in my opinion, he's probably the danger. I mean, Roaring Lion will run his race, don't get me wrong, but I think with all the negatives around him on, ground, track, draw, he's had a very long season. He started in the Craven. I just think you've got to take him on at the prices. For me, Recoletos 6 to 1 is... I'm all over that.
It sounds like you've both got your naps in this one, with Andy going for Lord Glitters and Mike going for Recoletos, and also you both agreeing that Adayeb is the danger at 8 to 1. Both those 2 horses that you've tipped up are 6 to 1. Lord Glitters 7 to 1. Recoletos is 6 to 1. I would love to know after both of your, after your tips there, who's going to back what of the listeners, who's made the more pressing case between the 2 of you, or maybe everyone will be piling into both of them each way. 4 places, as I said, with Paddy's, Betfair Sportsbook, BetVictor and Sky Bet at the moment. Finally, before we move on to the next race, I know there's a big price horse, Andy, that you like at 66 to 1 in Stormy Antarctic, who will have no problems at all with the soft ground. Yeah,
I mean, Ed Walker globetrots this horse, doesn't he? Tries to find soft ground whenever he can. I think he went over to America last time. Did he go to Woodbine? Yeah, sorry, he went to Canada in the Woodbine. Decent race there, and he finished creditable 3rd. But I went through his soft ground and heavy ground form. Again, it's another one that hasn't been out the first 3 under the conditions. He's got Ascot straight track form as well, albeit not top class, but he's a good solid Group 2 horse on his day. And like I say, I think this ground is a great leveler. You can look at ratings and weights and measures, and this one's won a Group 1, but he hasn't won a Group 2, and he hasn't won a Group 1. But it means absolutely nothing when the conditions are like this. At this time of year, I just think anything can happen. And I think if you go down the route of just backing the favourite or the right horse, the favourite horse because it's got the best form, because I think you'll come unstuck. There's going to be some mythical results here. You're thinking, how did that win? And it wouldn't surprise me if he ran really well. I'm not saying he's going to win. But, I mean, his overall profile, he's hardly ever out of frame. I
was going to say, 66 to 1. If you look at his last 4 results, it's been 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That's been good ground, and firm ground. Yeah. So the last good to soft run he finished 2 and 3/4 lengths behind Adayeb.
Yeah, exactly.
In 2nd place. So fair to assume then, if you guys are worried about Adayeb at 8, then at 66 to 1.
It can't be 66 to 1 shot. All I'm saying is if Adayeb is 7 or 8 to 1, then he should be, half those? He should be 16, 20 tops, and yet he's 66.
There you go, a bigger price one to keep us going on Saturday. On to the big one now, the Champion Stakes. Cracksman, who'll be wearing blinkers, is the even money favourite. Crystal Ocean 11 to 4, Capri 13 to 2, Monarch's Glen 14 to 1, Verbal Dexterity 20 to 1, Rhododendron 40 to 1. Subway Dancer 100 to 1 and Maverick Wave 150 to 1. Mike, what do we reckon here?
think this is a bad champion stakes.
Yeah.
I think, you can, in my opinion, you can knock all of these. From my experience with horses, once a horse, it might be the Cracksman that you don't hear necessarily the real reasons, in my opinion, why Cracksman's run badly. The obvious reason why we're not hearing this is because he's going to be a stallion, and the last thing you want to do if you've got a stallion is tell everybody why he's not running his best. But in my opinion, his mind's gone. And it happens to a hell of a lot of horses. It happens all the time. But the only way of really solving it and getting them back is to geld them. And that's obviously not going to happen with the Cracksman. And
how much would the race have to be worth to do that?
Exactly. It's just he's then obviously not going to geld him. Not suggesting that in the slightest, but I fully believe his head's gone. If John Gosden manages to get Cracksman back to his best, it's probably the best training performance John Gosden will ever do, in my opinion. I would be more encouraged if they hadn't put blinkers on for the first time. The fact they put blinkers on suggests to me that in the few months that he's been off the course, he hasn't gone the right way mentally. I'm a bit surprised they put blinkers on, but I think this is the last roll of the dice. It's going to be his last start, and I think they're just going to do everything they can to get him home. But I personally don't think when a horse goes that way mentally, you'll get them back without gelding them. So I think he's a terrible price, but I'm not entirely sure which one of them is going to beat him. Crystal Ocean, he's got very good form. He's a very good horse. He had to give weight to enable. And then whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but he's a very strong stayer. 10 furlongs I don't think is his optimum trip. He was outspeeded by enable last time quite readily. He scrambled home to beat Fabricate Shorthead at the start of the year over 10 furlongs, and his best form's over 1.5 miles. He does stay very well, but 10 furlongs, softer ground will probably suit, but when he ran at Goodwood in the Gordon Stakes, they were very worried about the ground. So, you've got soft ground with him, and then Capri, he hit the front in the arc, albeit for about 10 yards. And his positives with him, he ran in a ledger. He won over 10 this year, but he won a Mickey Mouse race. Does he have enough class to win a champion stakes? The way it's cut up, if anyone was going to win the champion, it might just be him. I felt he'd been rushed to get to the arc because he'd had a problem in the summer and they were running out of time. But he's certainly not good enough to win a usual champion stakes. He's not quick enough to win a normal champion stakes. This is a poor race.
As I said when we came to it, here's the big one. I think it's a name rather than an actual quality. Andy, do you agree with Mike's worries about Cracksman?
Worries enough for me not to back him at even money. This is the thing for me today. When I do my odds checker pieces, most of the time I'm looking for big prices. Yes, if there's a short one and it's miles clear on my figures and I haven't got a great deal else, and I will go down the short price favourite route. But on days like this, when there's doubts about anything, I haven't got a hesitation but to oppose them or look for something each way alternative, because I think that's where you make your money long term. Look, I'll probably just fiddle around with some big prices on Saturday. This is probably the least desirable race from a betting perspective. But what I will do, I mentioned a lot of horses over the course of the last hour or so. I'll probably perm up quite a few of these in doubles and trebles, and just banker Crystal Ocean.
I love it.
The dead 8 runners. Calm Circuit's having a non-runner between now and race time. That's set now, isn't it? But it's just as much as you can get place money going onto this horse and a few win bets. Obviously, that'd be nice. But the place part of the bet is the key, isn't it? You probably get 3 to 1 on Saturday, quarter the odds with a few firms, and he'll be in the first 3. He loves Ascot. Time figure wise, he actually run to a level up there with Cracksman on my numbers when he was a gallant runner up in the King George behind his stabber companion Poet's Word. In a stellar King George where the two were well clear of the rest. Yes, he was beaten by Noble last time out, but to be fair, in hindsight, that was to be expected, wasn't it? Considering that he's a strong stayer, it was a rather odd ride, wasn't it? You would have thought he would have led Enable and at least tried to drag the stamina out of Enable, having the first one back. But he sat him behind like a neighbour, and the neighbour was always going to out-kick him from 3 out. And, he's plugged on as Crystal Ocean does. He's a mile and a half horse, ostensibly, but he's got form over a mile and a quarter. It'll be more of a stamina test because of the soft ground. And ultimately, you could just set your clock by him. There's a few horses that line up here at Ascot, your Coronets, your Lord Glitters, your Crystal Oceans. Time and time again, they keep coming back to Ascot, year in, year out. Pretty much the ground at this time of year is always the same. They always run their races. And I think, like I say, you just keep backing those kind of horses all the time, the jack will come up every now and again and they will win. So you're just playing the percentages really, rather than, oh yeah, Crystal Ocean will definitely win here. But you just have bets where you think, well, I'm guaranteed to get a brilliant run out of this. And if that is good enough, then so be it. I agree with Mike. I don't think Capri's probably quick enough over a mile and a quarter. I think Crystal Ocean will have his measure. Monarch's Gled's an interesting one. I think we haven't mentioned him, but he's 14-12 to 1, and he has got Ascot form. He won the Wolferton, did he not?
Yeah.
Again, it's listed stroke Group 3 form at best, that, but there has been winners out of the race. Eugenio, whatever it was.
He did carry a penalty, I think.
Yeah,
it's a very good effort.
So it was a good effort. He's got form soft ground as well when he won at Goodwood last year. So, like I say, you can almost perm up a few there, perm the 2 stout horses. If you're looking like I am, of doing a bit of jiggery pokery through the day and going, right, I want to oppose them and put them 2 in that 3. You get some nice each way place money rolling on.
I think the listeners are going to think jiggery pokery is a horse now. They're going to be looking down the field looking for jiggery pokery.
But I think it's a good betting strategy, stroke medium, over the 5 or 6 races this weekend, to play around with prices. Look for the best prices. Look for the 4 or 5 places. Look for the quarter of the odds. You've only got to get 1 20 to 1 or 16 to 1 permed up in a couple of bets, and you get it going on 11 to 4, 3 to 1, and you get some great place money. So you don't have to back every winner and still make money. And that's what I'm looking to do here. I'll just bank a Crystal Ocean as my last leg of my bet.
All the traders listening to this now are going to be delighted with it.
It's like, oh, Crystal Ocean's got 3rd. Damn it. So yeah, he'll do for me. He's my anchor leg of my each way multiples.
So it sounds like I think the agreement here is basically to take Cracksman on, but with what it's slim pickings really. But Crystal Ocean 11 to 4 looks, for at least to Andy's eyes, like a banker for a place.
Yeah, I don't care if Cracksman wins. I'm not worried what Cracksman does. I just want Crystal Ocean to finish in the first 3. It's a much better bet.
And onto the final race of the day, which is a far, far better betting spectacle at least. We have the Balmoral Handicap. Raising Sand, on the back of that win a couple of weeks ago, is the 5 to 1 favourite for Jamie Osborne. Flaming Spear 9 to 1. Kinran 9 to 1, Argentello is 12 to 1, Safe Voyage 14 to 1, Via Via 14 to 1, Zwayan 14 to 1, Charger Bridge 16 to 1. I'm not going to go through them all because there are plenty in this big field handicap. So Mike, coming to you first here, what are the horses that are catching your eye as the prices have come out today?
It's a very tough race. I think Raising Sand has an obvious chance and is probably the right favourite, but I personally would rather he was running over 7. I think he's got loads of speed. He was given a very good ride last time, but it wasn't hard to see the way. I know he saw it out very well to the line, but he travelled so well through that race that I just personally think 7 might suit him better. There's a few in here. I think this is a very tough race. Kinran hasn't had his ground since he was second to Chief of Chiefs. I think it was at Sandown. I loved his run at Doncaster at the start of the year. I just think this might just be the first time for a long time he's really had his ground. William Buick's put to ride him. It's a very hard race. I thought Argentello was very impressive the other night. He's drawn 23 though. That could rule him out. The main thing in this race, which I really found might be a problem for a few of these, was there isn't really any pace in here. And the only front runner might be Another Bat in 17, unless Poet Society, who's currently first reserve, gets in. But he's drawn in stall 1. And it will be interesting to see how the course plays out during the day. A lot of these, they take back straight away coming out the stalls. They all want cover, and instructions will be to make sure they get cover. I just wasn't sure they were going to go very quick here, and I wouldn't necessarily want to back something that was going to be held up last. I'm not saying I want to be on something that's going to be prominent, because it tends to suit horses held up at Ascot, but this might just be a funny race. I thought it was hard. I like Kinran quite a lot, and I thought Sharjah Bridge has run very well on over 8 furlongs recently. And I thought the soft ground might play to his strengths. He hasn't had many runs on soft, but he's from a German family through his dam. And in my mind, from his form as a 2-year-old, I just think he wants it a bit softer, and a really big field from stall 8 right in the middle might just suit him being buried all the way through. I think he's about 14-1 or so.
Yeah, 16-1 with Paddy's and Betfair, who are also 5 places. I mean, so if I had to push you for a bet, Sharjah Bridge would be the one you'd be leaning towards now.
I'd probably be backing Sharjah Bridge each way. I think he's very consistent, and at that price, there's going to be loads of place terms here. You're definitely going to get 5 and maybe 6 towards the off. I think from a middle draw, when he's going to be smuggled into the race all the way through, I think he's very, very solid each way at that price. And if I had a win-only bet, it would be Kinran.
Kinran is 9-1 with Betfred and Bet365. Andy, this is your kind of race, isn't it? What are you after?
Yeah, well, it is ordinarily. Yeah, I'll probably have a couple of bets in this. I do like playing these races 2 against the field, and maybe sometimes even 3, having 3 each way bets, particularly if you get 5, 6 places on offer. And Mike's made some really good points about this race. Been a difficult one to have a dogmatic view at this stage until we've seen the evidence of the straight track early on in the card. So if you're desperate to take a price in the morning and try and get the very best price, then fair enough.
As ever.
But on a race like that, nothing's going to get collapsed here. You might miss the 12s and it goes 10 or 9, but I'd rather take 9 and 10 knowing I'm drawn in the right part of the track rather than take 12 and think, I'm a million. Yeah. Like, because if you back, Mike said, Argentella, when he's 23, and the low numbers are miles clear in every other race on the early part of the meeting, then that 12-1 or 10-1, you might as well be 50-1. You still wouldn't back it. So I think you're probably almost better watching the first couple of races. But if you have me for an opinion now, I think Rising Sun is for once the right favourite. There's a few dodgy favourites scattered around the card, but it's hard not to make him favourite based on his track form and particularly soft ground form. And he was brilliant when he won here the other day over 7. He always looked the winner. He always looked in control. He quickened well. He's just a horse who comes in here in great form. I don't see his draw being a problem. And he stays. He stays.
Strong 20, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it could be, but we can say we don't know, do we? I think that'd be enough. There always is a couple of front runners that jump out and throw their cap in the ring. I mean, Mark Johnson's probably got a couple in there that could go along and drag it along to a reasonable gallop. There is a good thing in this race if he take his Lincoln run at face value, and he's got solid track form. That's Mitchum Swagger. I mean, he was third to Lord Glitters and Adi Ayeb. I think he was trying to give him weight as well in the Lincoln. And that's the only time he's had soft ground. He's only run twice this season, but the ground was too quick for him last time at Haydock. It was good ground behind Ali Marantum in a strongly run race at Haydock. That wouldn't have suited him. But a straight track mile, soft ground. He's got some really, really appetising form, Mitchum Swagger. He's 20-1. I mean, what price would Lord Glitters or Adi Ayeb be off his mark in this race?
Yeah.
I know, that's taking it really, really literally. But all I'm saying is he's been overlooked off the back of one slightly mediocre run. He comes here fresh, and I think a lot of these have had hard seasons. You look at the likes of Aquarium, can he run well again? A lot of these have literally run themselves punch drunk now. So you perhaps want to be looking at something here coming in slightly under the radar. So if you gave me a bet now at the price and say, Andy, right, you've got to have your tenner each way, I think 20-1 for Mitchum Swagger is probably the way I'd go now.
Mitchum Swagger 20-1 with Betfair, Paddy Power, who are both 5 places, and Ball Sports, who are 4. The key tip here, it seems to me, though, is to wait until we've seen a couple of races and have a look at how the races are panning out. That could be the case for these last 2 or 3 races, really, couldn't it?
Well, I can't see anything in this race like that massively well clear that a lot of the tipsters are going to, like your Tom Segars, your Paul Keelys, your tipping lines are going to concentrate on anything and completely and utterly crash something through the floor.
Cue a 2-point each way tip from you, Andy, the night before.
Absolutely no chance. There'll be a couple of half a point each ways for me in this race, speculators. So I can't see these prices changing dramatically. Like I say, even if they do, they're only going to go down a couple of points, and you might as well wait to, the time of the race, 10 past 4, 4:15. You've got all the evidence of the day, where the draw is, then, you could get a little bit more confident. But now it's a difficult race to sort of get heavily stuck into.
Fair enough. Well, we've gone through the card now, and just a final question that we were asked that I'm going to ask you guys. Mr. Gosden thought he was in the clear, but sadly the last question is specifically about his 4 horses, and we haven't been too kind to them today, but I'll ask you both anyway. Gosden, this is from Alex Keating. Gosden has 4 hot pots: Lati Dar, Cracksman, Roaring Lion and Stradivarius. Which is the biggest certainty? Don't know if judging by today, I think any of the certainties, and which is the most vulnerable. Yaka pays about 28 to 1. It can't, can it? I'm going to answer that one for you, Alex. These guys definitely don't think that the 28 to 1 is value there at all. But first, let's change the question now. Mike, coming to you first. Which one would you back if you had to? Which one do you think is the most vulnerable?
It would be the one I'd probably back is Lati Dar, because I think she is probably the closest to the price which she should be. I couldn't back Cracksman with any money. And I don't think Roaring Lion is a million miles away from the price he probably might be, but it still wouldn't tempt me in for a number of factors already said. I think, God, that's a hard one. I wouldn't back any of them.
So Lati Dar the one you back, and Cracksman the most vulnerable, would you say, out of the 4?
I think so. I think Stradivarius is the most likely to win, but he's also Cracksman the shortest price. So I do think Stradivarius is the most likely winner. But I think Lati Dar will run a very good race, and if I had to have a bet on the 4 with the gun to my head, it would be Lati Dar.
And the gun to the head's the most important one there. Andy, how about yourself?
I don't want to sound contrary, but out of those 4, I think Cracksman's the one I'd probably be with the most. Basically, based on my theory that he's got winning Ascot course and distance form on soft ground. Despite him not having a stellar season, I think he's got the weakest race other than Crystal Ocean. You know, we haven't really given too many positives about the rest, and yet we've given Lati Dar about 4 or 5 opponents she's got to worry about. She's never run around the track on soft ground. Roaring Lion's never run on the straight track on soft ground. He's got a 6 or 7 that could beat him. And Stradivarius got beat at the same price last year under the similar conditions. So, like I say, you asked me which one's the most solid of those, I'd have to say Cracksman. It still doesn't make me want to back him. I think all 4 are very, very vulnerable, and seriously, if you offer me 100 to 1 that 4 time, I wouldn't take it.
And there you go. What a way to finish. Wouldn't take the 100 to 1 on the ACCA. I'm going to go now and have cross doubles and trebles throughout the card. Each way doubles and trebles, all going into Crystal Ocean on Andy's recommendation. Thank you very much to both Andy and Mike for coming here today. Obviously, Andy will be writing his daily column as ever up to the day and also on the day as well, where I'm sure you can read what he said here today with his tips. But in the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the Odds Checker YouTube page so you can see all of our content there before anywhere else, and check the site and make sure you look at the grids when you're having your bet to make sure you're getting the best price that you can possibly get for your bets on Champions Day.